So if we were to ask you who is your customer, what would your answer be? Does Mr. Everybody or Mrs. Anybody exist? And what signals that that customer might not be the one for you? I see too often in the trading rooms that salespeople, sales organizations are treating everyone as a qualified prospect and pushing so hard down their sales process that when the wheels come off, inevitably further down the line, they lose the sale, they lose confidence, all because they didn't have potentially a better qualification process at the start. So if we could just build some form of qualification into our sales process and the conversations that we have, what benefits might we see? It's that we're going to discuss today. My guest literally wrote the book called The Qualification Struggle, because I assume there are commonalities in what I've just said that he sees as well. We're going to discuss all sorts around qualification and the benefits of it, and to get a greater understanding of why some organizations avoid it. Bram, welcome along to you. Please do take some time at this moment to introduce yourself, tell us about your work and how you got into writing a book about the qualification struggle.
First of all, Rob, thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate your time and the time of this audience. Qualification keeps me busy. It's one of the main frustrations of my professional life. I get presented with a lot of nice opportunities from the best and the nicest companies in the world, but I have no idea where I should focus my attention to, how I should spend the resources. Sometimes I hit on a path together with a prospect, which is a dead end. And that's not per se a bad thing, but I'm spending resources of my colleagues. I'm spending time of my colleagues. This struggle, this qualification struggle, I call it, is the subject of my latest book. And I'm sure that many of you recognize this struggle. You have come across opportunities, projects that your prospects really want you to do because they think you are the best fit to their project. You hit on with them, and upon a time, along the line, you'll find out that it's not the right fit. This really hurts me. My commercial sense really gets hurt quite a lot. So that's where we're talking about today. Thanks again, Rob, for having me here.
No, thank you. Thank you for taking your time. I mean, time is a commodity that's referenced in your book. Right in the preface, I think you acknowledge the value of the reader's time, of your time, of my time. Why are salespeople so keen to not value their time by lacking this sense of qualification? Is the pursuit of just getting busy? Or why are we so easy to not value and respect our time, our prospects' time, our organization's time?
I'm not sure. For me, I'm planning to get 100 years old, but every minute of my life is precious. And I assume that's also true for the people around me, for my colleagues, for my prospects. So it's my duty just to make sure that we are continuing a journey which leads to somewhere, leads to me adding value, it leads to my company adding value to our prospects' projects. Why I feel that this qualification process lacks the attention is because salespeople are afraid to say no to a client. They feel that a client might be, or that the prospect might not be qualified, but they feel all kinds of pressures. They have a pipeline which is not filled. The order book of the company is not completely filled, or the other way around, it's overfilled. So they feel that they have to make a decision based on what's happening around them. Those pressures influence the qualification process a lot. There are tons of models available, like BAND or MEDIC, that prescribe a module for qualification, a module for qualification meeting certain criteria. If you take BAND, for example, budget, authority, need, timeline. Those qualification criteria can be manipulated by salespeople in their favor. If they want to have an opportunity qualified, then they make sure that they gather the answers that they want from their prospect to get their opportunity qualified. And that's basically driven by the pressures that are surrounding the salespeople. If we understand as an organization those pressures, we can better manage the qualification process in general. Again, the time is most precious. And that's not the time only from the salespeople. Salespeople can entertain a client, can entertain a prospect, but they also need the time of their colleagues. They need to spend resources of the company. Are those resources really adding value to that specific prospect? We should ask that all the time.
I like how you think it comes from a place of fear. You know, they might engineer their pipeline to be more full than it really is, even though they've got clients or prospects in there that they know aren't really a good fit, but from a place of fear, they will include it and they will spend time and resource on it. Do you think, and have you seen in your experience, that culture of fear comes from a leadership position to drive numbers, to make sure the pipeline is always full, rather than taking a step back and thinking, well, who really are the best type of prospects we want in our pipeline, never mind just filling it? Interested your thoughts around that what's driving the fear from the sales professional?
Yeah, the fear is fueled from within the sales professional itself, and it's additionally fueled by leadership and company culture. If there's a culture of mutual respect, freedom to take decisions, and backing up of each other's decisions, the qualification process will be flawless. But in real life, this is not the case. Salespeople, they always feel the pressure of their pipeline. If it's not full enough, they make different decisions than if it was a completely filled pipeline. Leadership keeps on putting the numbers together. They want the salespeople to hit the targets no matter what. At least that's what the salesperson is feeling. On the other hand, also the organization, there is tons of pressure from within the organization. People tend to feel busyness nowadays. So they feel to be busy with operational stuff. If a salesperson comes with a little bit extraordinary opportunity, which is really adding value to not only the prospect's life, but also to just the P&L of your company, they feel that they have to execute the project, and that's making them nervous. This pressure is pushed back towards the salesperson, and he or she will feel that. It's a leadership thing and a cultural thing. If we allow salespeople just to make a decision without taking the numbers into account, and they just can focus on the quality, and we more or less motivate the salesperson to make a good qualification call, we will be more laser sharp focused to the prospects that we really can add value to. It's a leadership.
Do you think that leadership is also lacking elements of coaching and pipeline reviews that just leave almost the salesperson to go and look after their own pipeline, and then the language becomes inconsistent? So one person's prospect is another person's suspect, and we get blurred lines, and therefore there's no one view of what the actual pipeline is. Would coaching help that, do you think, from a leadership perspective, and break that cultural sort of drive for more? Yeah,
always coaching will help, especially in a leadership position. You should coach your sales team to identify the qualification criteria at least. Don't try to overrule what the salesperson is feeling. Try to by questioning, and try to find where the salesperson thinks he can add value to that particular opportunity. If we take over the role of the salesperson in the qualification process as a leader, we will kill entrepreneurial spirits in our sales teams. You want to, as a leader, you want to empower your sales team to make the qualification call themselves. If they are afraid to take the call, they will always come back to the leadership, and leadership takes decisions based on rational criteria, but he doesn't particularly wants to see what the real opportunity is, the opportunity behind the opportunity, and that's where sales leadership is involved. But yeah, the goal of the sales leadership and coaching should always be to fuel the entrepreneurial spirit of the salesperson. What about this entrepreneurial spirit with those people?
And perhaps often you see that entrepreneurial spirit drained out of people because of the fear, because of the culture to drive more numbers, and certain industries have more pressure to drive those numbers. External forces change the market, of course, which mean that sometimes there isn't a market there. I'm sure during COVID, when people couldn't buy anything, what were the salespeople to do? And we saw times when there was genuine fear on their faces because they couldn't do what they've always done. They couldn't do the driving, they couldn't do the prospecting as they were used to doing. So they didn't know what to do at times. And it was very, very worrying, I think, for them, because they were so in control of what they do themselves. And when they couldn't do it, there were gaps. One thing we see, Bram, is almost a pride. I don't know if you see this as well. A pride from sales teams and leadership and management of those organizations. Let's say everyone's our customer. If the phone rings, everyone is our customer. We won't say no, we'll serve them. And I just think it's very ironic, if you like. They know they're not hitting targets, but they'll say yes to everything. Something seems to be going wrong. And just talk to us, if you can, about why you think a targeted sales approach is important, but perhaps more importantly, why you think businesses don't do it.
Yeah, first of all, it's my belief that as a salesperson, you should have the belief that everyone can be your customer. If you start talking to a prospect, be open-minded, even if it's a clear misfit in the beginning, you might still end up with a really nice client, or maybe even a referral. So start open-minded. Everyone's a customer. I think that's not a bad thing in the belief systems of salespeople. However, of course, there's this qualification process to be done to turn a suspect into a prospect, or a prospect into a client. And this qualification process narrows down the customer base. So if you take the funnel, throw in all suspects, which you still can consider to be a potential client, but you narrow down during qualification process. And this allows for first for filtering, of course, but it always allows for good conversations at the top of the first steps of the commercial process. So the discovery step, so to say. The discovery step allows for mutual qualification. So the client is the prospect is qualifying you, and you are qualifying the prospect. That this is a mutual conversation, and after that, you both agree on if your prospect can become a client. Not everyone is a client, but it's a mutual. It starts with a conversation. In my belief, you cannot disqualify or qualify a prospect without a real conversation. That's my personal belief. And the hidden gems are in that conversation, for sure.
So when you say about targeted sales approach, what do you mean by that? Because I agree, and we talk about with the organizations that we work with, that they should build what we call a holding pattern. Ultimately, this is people that you believe one day might want or need your product or service. One of the qualification questions, right? but at the moment they don't. That doesn't mean to say one day they won't. So we encourage every salesperson to have what we call the holding pattern, their own network that they can inform and educate and speak to and keep engaged. But I think often even at that simple level, it's missing because they'll have an inbound call or an email, they'll treat it as a customer. They'll either force it to say yes there and then, so it becomes misaligned.
Yep.
And they won't think, well, it's not a customer yet. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add them to my LinkedIn network. I'm going to add them to my email list. And I'm going to keep them educated and informed, because when they signal that they want or need what I've got it to sell, they'll come to me. And I think it's a big step that's missing, probably because it slows down some of the sales process. It makes salespeople go slower because they can talk to many people at once at the top of their funnel whilst they aren't qualified. And I just wonder why you think that some organizations are avoiding a targeted sales approach and are leaning more towards the any inquiry is a lead, sell to it regardless. Why are we avoiding it? Why don't we call it out and build it in at the top right from the front, do you think?
Yeah, it's of course two-sided. One is the fear for missing out on nice opportunities, and the second one is just being afraid to be too targeted, too narrow. Organizations tend to become too narrow when there's talks in the company that the stress levels go up. Only by then they choose a targeted approach. And then they want to be laser sharp. They look at their one day they wake up and they look at their overhead and they see a sales machine which is just enormous in comparison to the rest of the organization, and then they feel, oh man, you have to do something. And then they start with a targeted approach. They narrow down the qualification process to a few criteria that are hard to meet. With those criteria, they try to funnel down all the activities of the salespeople, but as soon as the numbers drop, they let loose of those targeted approach again. And that's a shame, because within the targets, there is still a lot to explore. You can always go deeper into the targets. You can also always add more value, which is recognized by your niche, by your target audience. And if it's recognized, you will be allowed to make a little bit more margin, which makes it's okay for not the quantity, but the quality goes up of your opportunities.
Yeah, of course. And I think I want to touch around the personalization and talking to a more of a segmented customer profile shortly. But I just wanted to pick up on the framework. You suggest in your work that the BANT framework, I guess, which a lot of people use, we use very, very similar. We used to use the BANN. Is there a budget? Have you got the authority? And is it a product or service that you need? For us as a service provider, it's a great measure before we start having more serious conversations. You suggest it might not be adequate. And I think there'd be great value for the viewers and listeners of this to understand why it might not be adequate and where can we go if it's not? Where else can we look for qualification?
A BANT was introduced by IBM in the 50s, and that at that time, salespeople were getting out to clients' offices, educate them from day one. Things have totally changed nowadays. When we talk to buyers for the first time, they already were on the buying journey for 50% until they already made a buying decision almost. They allocated their budget. They know their decision, what is needed inside their organization to make a decision. They identified and they structured their requirements. They have an idea about a timeline, and once they report to you, BANT is only there basically to summarize the buying journey until they speak to you. There's much more in this discovery phase that goes far beyond BANT. Other frameworks probably suit a little bit better, but they get more complex. if I can give you one tip, is that you always, early in the process, should identify your, in some frameworks, they call it the champion. So that's your guy into the guy or woman into the organization, the one that should coordinate and lead the buying process. You should identify who that is. If you have identified that during your qualification process, then you're really already far in the process. You know who that guy is, our guy or woman is, and yeah. So far, frameworks. Any framework will do to at least rationalize the qualification process, but don't underestimate it. The pressures, internal pressures that come from the opportunity. So, is there a lot of specifications that you can meet or partially meet? The pressures from the salesperson himself. If he's going on holiday next week, he's more likely to disqualify the opportunity. Assess those kind of pressures and discuss them within your team. Yeah, be open about that. So framework, very good. Make sure there's at least you identify the champion, and for the rest, be open to all the pressures that around those qualification process.
So I guess when you say identify the champion, you're talking much more about larger, complex deals where we see people saying, well, there's many more stakeholders in the decision now. We've got operation, we've got finance, we've got purchasing, and it's almost like more of a joined up approach to buying now. So how are you helping organizations understand the more complex buying process? If there are more stakeholders, yes, get the champion, great. At what point do you start to engage other stakeholders in that decision, do you think?
Yeah, you have to address the objections that your champion will get from all the stakeholders around him. And if you can do that before he's talking to you, then you're really winning the battle of trust. If you are not, if you're already talking to your champion before he's going into the internal discussions, then you have to make sure that he has all the tools to convince the rest of the decision-making unit, and you're there to support him. Your champion is doing the difficult selling part of your job. It's not you that sells. The salesperson is not selling. He's basically giving tools and giving information to the champion to sell your service to his colleagues, and that's where you can make the most difference as a salesperson. If you are on the journey with your champion, how can you together convince his decision-making unit? If you, for example, take an engineer who's tasked to find an instrumentation solution for monitoring their production line, that engineer knows technically how to solve that issue. He might have used some of the components and the services that you provide as a company, but then he starts talking internally. He presents his technical solution, and then he gets all the objections from finance, from the users on the production line, from Q&A, from QA/QC. He gets all those questions in, and he has no idea how to solve them. And that's, if you as a salesperson have educated, or as a company through your marketing channels, have educated this champion on those specific topics, you will gain his trust, and that's where you can win the battle for your client. And you can, of course, add the most value as a salesperson in general. So
I like how you bring up the objection piece, because I think sometimes salespeople do wait too long to get objections. We observe in the training rooms and organizations we work with that there aren't really that many new objections. They're all very common, but we don't address them until we're in the room. Whereas I like what you're saying there, if I'm right, and please correct me if I'm wrong. You're suggesting that we could enable the champion within the organization, within the buying organization, through content, for example, common objections that you might hear in the next 3 or 6 months during our time together. please share this with finance, please share this with purchasing. Is that where you're going with that? Because I think that could be a great shout.
Yeah, that's definitely where I'm going. That's and the better job we do in that phase, the more easy the buying process in general is. You want to make your champion feel at ease. You want to make your champion feel supported. Yeah, and if that's the case, then he will definitely get you into the project.
Interesting. And just going back to the BANT framework, I like how you said the customers almost qualified themselves, because, like you say, they're 50. There's some school of thought that says they're 80% through their buying journey when they pick up the phone or want a face to face. So it's assumed, there's an element of assumption that they've got the budget, the authority, the need. How can an organization make sure that that customer is a good fit for the organization? If the customer's saying, yeah, I've got a budget, I've got the authority, and I've got the need, how can an organization then have a check and balance to say, well, is this a strategic fit for us? Shall we accept this customer? Because I guess in complex negotiations where it's a large, long drawn out sales cycle, there needs to be some check and balance. So what might that be for an organization to do? If I'm phoning you up to say, I've done all my research, I've got the budget, I've got authority, and I've got the need, where do I sign? How can we just put the brakes on there as an organization just to check our own homework in that respect?
Typically, when clients report to you in that way, then you know they basically using you as an alternative to compare you to competition. They really want you to really want to motivate you to quote. As soon as you quote, then you don't hear anything. That's what's happening if you get such a customer on the phone. On the other end, if you did the qualification in a normal way, a mutual conversation, and you qualified based on bond criteria, there still might be a feeling within yourself that, are we really adding enough value to this client? Do we spend the resources to help this client rather than helping another client? There's only a limited amount of resources available. Yeah, it's not black and white. There's always a sense of feeling with, as a seller, where you add most value, and if that's not with a specific project or an opportunity, you have to address that, and you have to challenge the perception of your customer.
Yeah, and obviously the customers or potential customers they've got the world of information at their fingertips. They've got, we can research ourselves, we educate ourselves, we inform ourselves about our own problems. We know, or we think we know, our own problems, and we know what solutions we need. So how is that digitization of the marketplace affecting qualification in its most historic way? If customers are coming to organizations saying, I know what I want, how can a sales organization use digital as an asset to help speed up the qualification process or nurture more suspects, do you think?
Yeah, the digital is essential. It's vital to the qualification process. If we assume that our prospects research really well and they already 50% down the buying cycle, then we can better make sure that we have them qualifying themselves according to the criteria that we mentioned, and that we also present all the information at the right time, at the right volume, at the right in the right format, so they can qualify themselves and get ourselves qualified within their decision-making units. And that's where AI and other forms of data can help. We need to be able to predict what our prospects need to see at a certain time. And if we can predict that well, we can present them with the information they need to qualify themselves and to sell our service within their decision-making unit.
I see, Bram, and I don't know if this is what you see as well, that a lot of what we talk about with digitization and content and resources to help people qualify themselves, it's historically more of a marketing job. So that in itself can challenge some sales professionals because they have to become more engaged in the earlier part of the buyer's journey, because we see so often that the marketing department is often a team of one. The sales team might be a department of 15 to 20. The ratio doesn't help. So how can salespeople become more active earlier to help these buyers make their own decisions better, so they're not irrelevant and they're not getting left out later on? How do you address that imbalance if it is becoming more digital?
Yeah, for sure that salespeople need to be need to get more tech savvy. That's especially we expect that from younger generations, but still they need to be translate what they hear in the market to some kind of content, and it can the format doesn't matter. It can be video, it can be written content, but turn everything that you put out there. Information in your technical proposal, for example, turn that into something that's worth sharing online. Everything that's worth sharing to one client can be shared to many. Make a habit out of that. Leadership should push or should motivate salespeople to be active online. There's no way around it. We have to start adopting that. That doesn't mean that you have to be online all the time. The real difference that a salesperson can make is still in a conversation, and this conversations, that's what's making us as a sales profession still relevant, and we will remain relevant. But before we talk to a prospect, they have already done so much research, and everything that we can help them into the first discussion with us upfront helps. So,
It does, and you've mentioned you've mentioned AI a couple of times as well, and I think how are you seeing AI play out? We're at such an early stage of it. I don't think anyone can answer with any certainty what it's going to look like in 5 years' time, for example. But what I'm seeing and what you might be observing is that people are very happy to almost absolve themselves of responsibility and say, well, AI can do that for me. So we're almost choosing not to be active earlier in the buyer's journey, saying, the robots will be fine. I'll be waiting for when they phone me. And I just think in a way we're setting ourselves up for a big fall if that's how we continue. What are you seeing with AI? Is it helping, or is it hindering, or is it a bit of both?
Yeah, we still have to get used to AI, but in the top funnel process, it can really help. Just take an example from today. We are sourcing an HR tool within the organization that I work. This HR tool should do 360 reviews, peer-to-peer reviews, and funnel that to a database. That's basically what we want to buy. When we start Googling, we come across all kinds of really fancy HR tools that go far beyond what we really need. We know what we want. We have identified our need. We know our requirements. AI on the software providers, if they have decent AI can predict what we want. They can take the data from Google, what we searched. They can find out who is working within the organization, who probably is taking this on as a project. What's their preference on how they want to work. They know how AI can predict how we make decisions within our organization. So how can we not translate this? How can AI not fuel the way that research results are presented to us in a way that's really fitting our benefits, and not having the small portion plus tons of different features. AI can do that for us. So I believe there is, it really helps in the qualification process a lot.
Do you think
Yeah,
it's helping already now? And how do humans therefore stay relevant if AI can just do everything? Do you think that there's going to be more of a pressing need for humans to prove that it's still me? You're still dealing with a human here, and
yeah.
will consumers even want that? Are you seeing that consumers don't want to speak to salespeople?
I think we are talking B2B. That's where at least I find myself in a daily life. And in B2B, um, uh, there's just limited resources, and we can only present our way of our view of how things are done effectively when in a conversation. AI can predict a little bit, but we need conversations of how sellers can offer services effectively, but also how the user can use it effectively. And this match will most probably still require humans to interact.
Hmm. I hope so.
Yeah, me too.
I really do. I really hope
Just
so.
too much fun.
Yeah, I mean, we've covered some decent ground around with the fear. It's coming from a place of fear that we are filling our pipeline because the culture and leadership of an organization hasn't helped define that process or not led through coaching. The opportunity to highlight objections early and answer those through content, I think, is a huge opportunity, especially when you're working with a partner as an ally into a wider buying decision group. I think that's a very insightful piece. And how a customer may not be a fit right now, but by building a holding pattern through our networks, through our LinkedIn, through our emails, through our content, we can educate and inform or help our potential buyers educate and inform themselves as they move forward. I just want to try and wrap up, Bram, with a few tips, if you like, quick wins, if there is such a thing, for organizations who might want to review their qualification process, or indeed, if they look in the mirror and think, we don't really have one, we're treating everyone the same. Where can we look? Where can an organization start to build that process?
Yeah, of course, there's tons of things that can be done. But if I can give a suggestion for a quick win, is don't take disqualification lightly. Don't disqualify by just replying to an email. We're not going to quote. Always pick up the phone and talk to a prospect. Try to explain your concerns. If you feel there's a mismatch, if you are you think that you have to disqualify this particular opportunity, talk to the prospect, learn what he really wants, why he has presented this opportunity to you. Tell him your concerns. Tell him there's a vendor or there's a supplier in your neighborhood which is doing a good job. Better ask him. Why not ask him? Those kind of questions. Let your prospect disqualify himself if it's really the case. And if he doesn't want to get disqualified, he will do his utmost best to get qualified. And if he does that, then he will give away a lot more information. He will be clearer about his budget. He will be clearer about his decision process, and he will be clear on how you can win as a selling company. And you can still disqualify after this conversation, but at least never disqualify without talking to a client. Additionally, okay, you've got your qualification criteria. I think you can engineer your structure. You can put it into a spreadsheet. But to the side, make a note of your dream clients and your future A clients. And future A clients, I mean with that those are clients that are typically not within your industry, but in an industry that you might want to touch upon in a couple of years, that you feel as interesting, but yeah, you don't focus on it yet. But those future A clients might be really helpful. Let the rest of the organization know about your dream clients and your future A clients. So whenever an opportunity pops up with those clients, those prospects, which is not really qualified, you can expand the qualification criteria a little, and the rest of the organization will understand why you do that. It's because you want to go the extra mile for this specific client, and that really helps. So make it visual inside your organization.
And don't treat everyone the same. We're going after these dream clients. Our content has to talk to dream clients. Our website has to talk to dream clients. The messaging we're going to showcase, the content, the case studies are all going to talk about this. And as an organization, that's where we're headed. And I think that consistency is really missing, or clarity of message is really missing. And it lends the sales team to go after anything and everything, because what else have they got to go on?
Yep.
Yeah. And Bram, just in closing, do tell us about your book. I can see, I think there's a couple of copies just behind your shoulder. So right next to you there. So tell us about the book. Tell us more about what we haven't covered in this conversation. Where can we find it, and how can we engage with you?
Of course, it's on Amazon. It's released 1 year ago, I think. It's doing quite well. It's written for small business owners, actually. They feel the qualification struggle the hardest. They have too many opportunities or too little. They know they need to target, but they are scared because they have to run their 200 employee business, and they have to feed it with opportunities and with work. So it's written for small and medium-sized businesses. There's a lot of takeaways for other sales leaders as well, and especially the pressures that surrounding the qualification framework.
Brilliant. And you're active on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I'm very active on LinkedIn. Nowadays, I'm trying to funnel my image towards a subject matter expert on a little different topic, but that's just because we have to get bread on the table.
Brilliant. Well, I'll put all the links in the video and the description. And listen, thank you so much for taking time with us today to talk about all things qualification. I think there's some great takeaways there. So thank you for sharing your insight and your time with us, Bram. Really appreciate that.
Thank you, Rob.
Take care.
Thank you.